She took her parents to thank her best friend for a gift, but when the door opened, she didn't find laughter, she didn't find welcome, she found her husband, dripping in steam, standing beside the very friend she came to honor. That moment shattered her heart, tore apart her family, and left an entire village whispering for generations. This is the gift that unveiled betrayal. Before we continue, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe for more stories like this. Now let's dive right in. The morning sun glowed golden over the village of Mbale, painting the red earth with a warm light. Women carried calabashes of water on their heads, children ran barefoot, their laughter rising above the crowing of roosters. Smoke curled from clay stoves where cassava porridge simmered. Natalie walked briskly down the narrow path, her long blue wrapper brushing the dust. In her hands, she carried a small woven basket filled with kola nuts and a bundle of fresh hibiscus flowers. She wasn't carrying them for trade, but for something far more important: gratitude. Behind her walked her parents, Walter, tall and broad even in his old age, leaning on his carved walking stick, and Agnes, graceful though her hair had turned white, her shawl drawn tightly around her shoulders. Natalie's face glowed with excitement. "Papa, Mama," she said cheerfully, "today is not just any day. Today, we will surprise Mary. She gave you that beautiful carved chest, remember? Such a gift deserves thanks from the heart, not just words." Agnes gave a small smile but shook her head. "She already gave too much, Natalie. That chest must have cost her dearly. A true friend gives quietly." She never even told anyone what she had done. Walter grunted, his deep voice like a drum. "And yet it is worth our thanks. Your friend showed honor. Few people do such things these days." Natalie turned to them, her eyes shining. "Exactly. That's why I didn't tell her we were coming. I want it to be a surprise. She will laugh, maybe even scold me for showing up without telling her, but I know she will be happy. You will see the light in her eyes. She deserves to know we are grateful." Her parents exchanged a glance. Agnes's brow creased with worry. Walter sighed but said nothing. They could see how much this meant to their daughter. As they passed the market square, people called out greetings. "Natalie, good morning," shouted Mama Florence, the bread seller. "Morning, Mama Florence," Natalie replied, smiling brightly. Her mother whispered, "See how your name is spoken well in the village. That is because of your heart. Do not let that heart be too quick to trust." But Natalie only tightened her grip on the basket. "Trust is what binds us, Mama. Without it, we have nothing." They left the busy square and walked down the cobbled lane that led to Mary's house. The house was well kept, built of stone with a roof of polished tin that gleamed under the sun. A small garden stood in front, with hibiscus flowers blooming like drops of blood against the green. Natalie paused at the gate, her heart swelling. She turned to her parents, her smile wide. "This is the home of my dearest friend. I want her to see with her own eyes how much we love her. Are you ready?" Agnes adjusted her shawl nervously. "I only pray this is a good idea." Walter tapped his stick on the ground. "Let us finish this matter quickly. If you believe it is right, we shall follow." Natalie's heart raced with excitement as she led them to the front porch. The lane leading to Mary's home was unusually quiet. No goats bleated. No women swept the dust before their doors. Even the birds seemed muted. The silence gave the air a heavy feeling, as if the earth itself was waiting. Natalie, however, felt no fear. Her chest was full of warmth. "She will be surprised," she said, half to herself, half to her parents. Surprised, but happy. They reached the wooden door. Natalie knocked lightly. Once. Twice. From inside came muffled sounds. First, a faint thump, then the rushing of water. Suddenly, laughter drifted out. But it was not the laughter Natalie knew, the bright, ringing laughter she and Mary shared during evenings of gossip and roasted groundnuts. This laughter was softer, hushed, intimate. Natalie froze, her hand still on the door. Her parents exchanged a quick, uneasy glance. Agnes whispered, "Natalie, maybe we should come another time." But Natalie shook her head, her smile trembling but still fixed. "No, Mama. She will scold me for arriving unannounced, but she will forgive me. She is my truest friend." The water inside stopped abruptly. Silence fell like a heavy curtain. Then hurried footsteps sounded uneven, quick, almost panicked. Walter leaned close to his daughter and muttered, "Something is not right here." Natalie ignored him, forcing a laugh. "Papa, you always worry too much." She gripped the latch, her knuckles white, and pushed the door open. The air that spilled out was heavy with steam and the sweet scent of hibiscus soap. The small sitting room was neat, just as Natalie remembered, the oak table polished, books stacked on the shelf, a vase of fresh lavender on the mantel. But the air felt thick, suffocating. "Mary," Natalie called, forcing cheer into her voice. "It's me. I brought Mama and Papa. We couldn't let your gift pass without thanks." Her words floated into silence. No cheerful greeting came. No footsteps rushed forward to meet them. Only the faint drip of water echoed from deeper inside the house. Walter tightened his grip on his walking stick. "This house feels wrong," he muttered. Natalie lifted her chin, though her stomach coiled with unease. "Nonsense. Mary would never forgive us if we left now." They stepped farther inside. The floor creaked beneath their weight. From the hallway came another sound, a low murmur. A man's voice. Natalie's heart skipped a beat. She blinked hard, telling herself it was a neighbor, a visitor, perhaps someone asking for water. But the voice was low, too familiar. Too close. Agnes reached for her daughter's hand, but Natalie pulled gently away, forcing herself to smile. "It is nothing. You will see." At the end of the hallway, a narrow door stood closed. From beneath it leaked steam, curling like smoke, carrying with it the thick scent of rose water soap. Behind the door came a sudden hushed laugh, unmistakably male. Natalie's pulse hammered in her ears. She tried to calm herself, whispering, "It's only a surprise visit. What could possibly be wrong?" Her hand trembled as it closed around the handle. The narrow hall stretched endlessly before her, every step echoing too loudly. Behind her, her parents stood silent, their faces tight with dread. Natalie drew a sharp breath and turned the handle. The door creaked open slowly, and in that instant, the world shifted. The door groaned open slowly, as if even the wood resisted revealing what lay behind it. The steam that rushed out clung to Natalie's skin, damp and heavy. It carried the sweet but suffocating scent of hibiscus soap mixed with something else, a musk that made her stomach turn. The hallway fell silent, so quiet that even the drip of water from within the room sounded like thunder in Natalie's ears. She forced her voice steady, though her throat ached. "Mary," she called softly, almost pleading. "It's me. Don't hide. We came to thank you." There was no reply. Only the faint shuffle of bare feet on wet tiles. Agnes clutched her shawl tighter around her shoulders, her face pale. She leaned toward Walter and whispered, "I feel something is wrong. I wish we had never come." Walter's eyes darkened. He tapped his walking stick against the wooden floor, the sound sharp and commanding. "If there is truth to be seen," he said firmly, "let us see it with our own eyes. Better pain than blindness." Natalie's hand trembled on the doorknob. Her heart screamed to stop, to turn back, to close the door and pretend nothing was wrong. But another voice, fierce and stubborn, rose inside her. "No. I will not hide from my friend. I will not doubt her without proof." She turned the knob. The door creaked wider, and steam spilled into the hallway like a veil. For a moment, Natalie saw nothing but mist. She stepped forward, her parents right behind her. Her sandals squeaked against the damp tiles. Then the mist parted. And there they stood. Harold, her husband. Mary, her best friend. Both of them dripping wet, their bodies flushed from the heat of the bath. Towels clutched to their skin, their faces frozen with shock. Natalie's breath caught in her throat. Her hand, still holding the basket of flowers, went limp. The hibiscus blossoms slipped free, scattering across the wet floor. Red petals floated in puddles like drops of blood. "Jesus, have mercy," Agnes whispered, her hand flying to her chest. Walter's cane struck the tiles with a force that echoed like thunder. His voice boomed, deep and full of fury. "What treachery is this?" Harold's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Natalie. I can explain." Explain. Walter thundered again. Do you call this shame an explanation? To stand half-naked in another woman's house, with your wife's friend at your side. Mary clutched her towel tighter, her eyes darting to the floor, her lips trembling but voiceless. She looked like a bird trapped in a cage, wings beating against invisible bars. Natalie staggered back a step, her knees threatening to buckle. Her chest heaved, every breath a knife cutting deeper. You, and you, she whispered, her voice cracking. She pointed at Harold, then at Mary. How long? How long has this been hiding beneath my nose? Neither answered. Their silence screamed louder than words. Tears welled in Agnes's eyes as she shook her head slowly, disbelief carving lines of sorrow across her face. Mary, she murmured. Child, I held you as my own. You sat at our table. You called me mother. And this is what you repay us with? Mary's lips quivered, but she could not lift her eyes. Walter's hand tightened on his walking stick. His face was crimson, veins bulging on his temples. Harold, he roared. I gave you my daughter's hand in marriage. I welcomed you as a son. And this filth is what you return to me. He lifted the cane as though to strike, but Agnes gripped his arm, pleading, no, husband, not here. Leave them to their shame. Natalie's chest rose and fell rapidly. The world spun, but her eyes never left the pair in front of her. Steam curled around them, trying to hide their naked betrayal, but it could not cover the truth. You deceived me, she said at last, her voice trembling but sharp. She stepped closer, pointing at Harold. You vowed before God to be mine alone. And you, she turned on Mary, her voice breaking, you were the sister of my soul. I trusted you with my heart. I trusted you with my family. Finally, Mary's lips parted. Her voice was small, broken. I never meant, it wasn't. Never meant. Walter roared, silencing her. He slammed his cane against the tiles, the crack echoing like a judge's gavel. You dare stand before us and say you never meant? The shame speaks for itself. Harold took a desperate step forward, the towel slipping dangerously around his waist. Natalie, listen to me, he begged, his voice raw. It was a mistake, a foolish moment. Stop. Natalie's voice cracked like a whip. Her eyes blazed, hot with tears. Do not call this a mistake. A mistake is spilling tea. A mistake is losing one's way on the road. This, she shook her head violently, her tears finally spilling down her cheeks. This is betrayal. The words cut through the room like a blade. Agnes wept openly, burying her face in her shawl. Walter's face hardened, his fury quiet now but more dangerous in its silence. The air in the bathroom grew heavier, as though even the walls sagged beneath the weight of their shame. Natalie bent forward, her voice low, trembling, but sharp as broken glass. You did not just betray me, Harold. You betrayed my parents who welcomed you as a son. You betrayed the vows that bound us before heaven. And you, Mary, she turned, her voice cracking with grief. You betrayed the very name of friendship. What we had, what I thought we had, was sacred. And you threw it away for this. Mary finally broke into tears, falling to her knees on the wet tiles, her body trembling. Natalie, please, she sobbed. I still love you. I never wanted to hurt you. It just happened. Natalie recoiled as though struck. Love, she spat, her face twisting with disbelief. Do not use that word before me. Love does not creep behind closed doors. Love does not hide in steam and silence. What you felt was not love. It was selfishness dressed in desire. Her father lifted his cane high, his voice like rolling thunder. This roof has no place for deceit. Out. Both of you, before I forget my age and cast you out myself. But Natalie raised her hand quickly, stopping him. Her eyes, though red with tears, burned with a new fire. Her voice was steady, sharp as steel. No, Father. Let them stand. Let them feel this silence. Let them see the faces they have wounded. Let them understand that their shame is not hidden. It is here, open, and it will follow them beyond these walls. For a moment, no one moved. The bathroom had become a stage, each of them frozen in their roles, the betrayers, the betrayed, and the witnesses who could never unsee the truth. Natalie's chest rose and fell as she took a final step forward. Her voice was quiet, but it cut deeper than any scream. "Look at me." Harold shifted uneasily, his knuckles white where he gripped the towel. Slowly, fearfully, he lifted his eyes to meet hers. "Natalie," he whispered, desperation cracking his voice. "I swear it meant nothing. It was weakness. A weakness I regret." Natalie's bitter laugh cut him off. "Weakness? You call this weakness? To betray your wife in her best friend's house? To take what is not yours and throw away what was sacred? No, Harold. This was no weakness. This was choice. And you chose betrayal." Her voice trembled, but she stood tall, her words burning like fire. "From this day, you will carry your shame. Not just before me, but before all who matter. The truth is open now. And the truth will not be hidden again." Silence followed. A silence heavier than screams, thicker than rage. And in that silence, something inside Natalie broke. But something else, fiercer, began to rise. The bathroom was still thick with steam, but the heat no longer came from the bathwater. It came from the weight of silence pressing down on every chest in that narrow room. Natalie stood in the doorway, her body trembling, her face wet with tears. The hibiscus petals she had dropped lay scattered on the floor like a broken offering. She had come with gratitude, with love, with joy, and found betrayal instead. Walter's face was carved in stone, his jaw set, his eyes burning with fire. He slammed his walking stick against the wet tiles, the sound ringing like thunder. "Speak," he bellowed. "Harold. Mary. Which of you dares to answer? Or will you hide behind silence like cowards?" Harold stumbled, clutching the towel around his waist. His lips moved but words refused to form. Finally, he croaked, "Natalie, my wife, it is not what it looks like." Natalie let out a sharp, bitter laugh, though her face crumpled in pain. "Not what it looks like." Her voice cracked. "Then tell me, husband, what does it look like? Tell me why my best friend stands naked in steam beside you. Tell me why my heart feels like it is being crushed inside my chest." Harold opened his mouth again, but nothing came. His silence was worse than lies. Mary pressed her back against the tiled wall, clutching her towel, her face pale. She looked from Natalie to Agnes, then to Walter, as though searching for mercy, but found none. Agnes's tears streamed freely, her hands trembling as she whispered, "Oh Mary, my child, why?" Mary closed her eyes, but no answer came. Walter's fury was uncontainable. He pointed his cane at Harold, his voice roaring. "I trusted you with my daughter. I gave you her hand in marriage before God and man. And this is what you bring back to my house? This filth? This shame?" Harold flinched as if struck. He bowed his head, but Walter's anger did not soften. Agnes's voice was softer, but it cut deeper. She took a step forward, her face streaked with tears. "Mary, you called me mother. You sat at my table, you ate from my pot, you laughed with us in joy. I loved you like my own. And this is how you repay us?" Mary shuddered, her lips trembling. I never meant." Natalie's eyes blazed, her voice rising like a whip. "Do not say those words, Mary. Do not insult me with "I never meant." You meant it every time you met him in secret. You meant it every time you touched what was mine. You meant it each day you smiled in my face while stabbing me in the back." Mary burst into tears, sinking to her knees on the wet floor. "I was weak," she whispered hoarsely. "I was weak. Weak." Walter thundered. "You call this weakness? This is not weakness. This is betrayal." Natalie took a step closer, her body trembling but her voice sharp as steel. "You betrayed me, Harold. You betrayed me, Mary. And today, before my parents, before this house, before God himself, the truth is revealed." Her words hung in the air, heavy as stones. Harold's shoulders slumped. Mary buried her face in her hands. Agnes sobbed quietly. Walter stood tall, his cane firm against the floor, his fury radiating like fire. But inside Natalie, something else stirred, a fierce strength she did not know she had. She raised her head, her tears glistening on her cheeks, and declared, "This wound may break me tonight, but it will not end me. You two have stripped yourselves bare, and the world will know your shame. From this moment, nothing will ever be the same." The silence after Natalie's words was unbearable. The steam clung to their skins, making the small bathroom feel like a prison. Harold shuffled forward, desperation in his eyes. "Natalie," he begged, his voice cracking. "Please. It was a mistake, just a moment of weakness. You must believe me." Natalie's laugh was sharp, bitter. "A mistake? Do not call it that. A mistake is forgetting salt in the soup. A mistake is stumbling on the road. This," she pointed at him, then at Mary, "this is betrayal. And betrayal is no mistake. It is a choice." Mary's sobs grew louder. She clutched her towel tightly, her head bowed. But Walter's voice thundered again, shaking the walls. "Answer her. Do not hide behind silence. How long has this filth been going on? Tell my daughter the truth. Do not add cowardice to betrayal." Mary trembled, her knuckles white around the towel. She shook her head, her lips trembling. But Walter slammed his cane against the floor. The sound cracked through the heavy air. "Answer her." Mary flinched, tears spilling down her cheeks. At last, her broken voice escaped her throat. "Months," she whispered. Agnes gasped, her hand flying to her chest. Walter's face turned crimson, his fury blazing. "Months." Natalie repeated, her voice hollow. She staggered back a step, her body swaying. "While I lay in bed with fever, you crept into my friend's arms. While I struggled for breath, you gave yours to her." Mary fell to the floor, her sobs echoing through the bathroom. "It started last winter," she confessed, her voice choking. "Harold came to me when you were sick. He said he was lonely, he said he needed comfort. I thought it was harmless at first. Just words. Just company. But then," she broke down completely, unable to continue. Natalie's vision blurred with tears. She turned slowly to Harold, her voice trembling with fury. "You came to my bedside with lies on your lips. You held my hand with one hand while holding her with the other. You are not just faithless, you are rotten to your core." Harold tried to speak, but his voice broke. "Natalie, I never stopped loving you." Natalie's voice rose, sharp as a blade. "Do not speak of love. Love is faithful. Love is true. What you had was lust, and you wrapped it in lies." Agnes sobbed harder, turning away from the sight. Walter shook his head, his voice low but filled with fire. "You too deserve the scorn of this village. You deceived not just Natalie, but every soul who trusted you. You thought your sin was hidden in steam and silence, but truth always bursts through doors." Natalie sank onto a chair in the small room, her body trembling. Her tears fell freely, but behind them her eyes blazed with strength. "Mary. Harold, your secret is no longer yours. Your shame will follow you. You cannot bury it. You cannot wash it away. It will cling to you like a second skin." Mary sobbed into her hands. Harold bowed his head, shame etching his face. Agnes rushed to Natalie's side, cradling her daughter's shoulders. "My child, breathe. Do not let their filth steal the strength from your lungs. You are not alone. We are with you." Walter placed a hand on Natalie's shoulder, firm and unyielding. "Remember this day," he said. "Remember it not as your downfall, but as the moment you stood tall. Betrayal is theirs, not yours. Their shame will linger. Your dignity will endure." Natalie drew a sharp breath, her hands trembling but her voice steady. "This betrayal may wound me, but it will not define me. Their lies are theirs to carry. My truth remains." Her words silenced the room. The steam still clung to their skins, but in that moment, Natalie felt something shift inside her. The wound was deep, but strength was rising from its ashes. And though her heart bled, her spirit would not be broken. The air in Mary's bathroom was still thick with steam, but the truth had burned hotter than any bathwater. Harold stood trembling, his towel slipping as he tried to reach for Natalie. Mary knelt on the wet tiles, her face buried in her hands. Natalie, though shaking, held herself tall. Her tears streamed freely, but her eyes were hard as stone. Harold's voice cracked as he stepped closer. Natalie, please. You must hear me. It was a foolish mistake. A weakness. I swear it will not happen again. Natalie recoiled as if his words were fire. Do not come near me. Do not call this weakness. You chose this. Every time you touched her, every time you crept here in secret, you chose it. Do not dress your betrayal in excuses. Harold's knees buckled, and he fell to the floor, clutching at her feet. Forgive me, Natalie. I am your husband. The man you vowed to love. Do not throw me away for one mistake. I will change, I promise you. I will make it right. Walter's cane struck the floor like thunder. A man who must beg for the right to keep his vows is no man at all. You are not worthy of the hand I gave you. Agnes wept into her shawl, her voice trembling. Harold, you stood before God and promised to honor her. You stood before us and swore to cherish her. And now you crawl in shame, asking forgiveness not because you are changed, but because you are caught. Harold looked up, his eyes red, his voice desperate. No, that is not true. I love her. I always loved her. Mary was nothing. She was only. Stop. Natalie cried, her voice echoing through the small house. Her hands shook as she pointed at him. Do not dare to blame her alone. You are not a child. You are not a fool who stumbled by accident. You are a man who betrayed his wife. Betrayal sits on both of your shoulders. Mary sobbed louder, curling into herself. Harold bowed his head, his tears dripping onto the tiles. Natalie took a deep breath, her voice trembling but steady. You ask for forgiveness, Harold. But what forgiveness can mend a broken vow? What forgiveness can return the trust you shattered? You destroyed the covenant we built with your own hands. You tore it apart with lies and lust. Harold clutched her ankle, his voice breaking. Please, Natalie. I am ruined without you. The village will scorn me. I will be nothing. Give me another chance. Let me prove I can be better. Natalie's eyes filled with new tears, but her voice was firm. You want mercy because you are shamed, not because you are changed. You are not ruined because of me, Harold. You are ruined because of yourself. You broke your vows. You broke my heart. You broke this marriage. And there is no road back. Walter nodded, his face stern. My daughter speaks the truth. You chose deceit, Harold. And now you must walk the path it leads to. Agnes's tears flowed as she whispered, Natalie, my child, are you sure? To end it so swiftly. Natalie turned to her mother, her voice steady though her heart quivered. Mother, it ended the moment I opened that door. He ended it with his choices. I will not bind myself to chains of betrayal. Harold collapsed fully onto the floor, his hands covering his face. Mary wept beside him, the two of them drowned in shame. Natalie lifted her chin, her voice cold and final. This marriage is broken. My vows are no longer yours to hold. From this day, Harold, you are my husband no more. Her words cut through the steam like lightning. The silence that followed was heavier than screams. By the next morning, the story had already slipped beyond Mary's stone walls. Secrets in a village never stay hidden for long. What had been whispered in one ear became a fire burning across Mbale. At the market square, women clucked their tongues as they pounded yam. Have you heard? Whispered Mama Florence to Mama Kimi. Natalie caught her husband with Mary, her own friend. Mama Kimi gasped, her pestle pausing midair. Mary? That quiet one? Always smiling politely? Eh? So the serpent hides in the grass after all. By the blacksmith's forge, men shook their heads. Harold has shamed himself, muttered Papa Jonah, wiping sweat from his brow. A man who cannot keep his vows is no man at all. He was always proud, another man replied. Now see how pride has fallen. He will not walk these streets with his head high again. Even children repeated the tale in hushed tones, though they did not understand its weight. They say Uncle Harold was caught with Auntie Mary in the bath, one child whispered to another, eyes wide. By midday, the whispers grew into open conversation. Some villagers frowned in anger, others laughed in disbelief, but all agreed on one thing: Harold and Mary had disgraced themselves. Walter walked through the market that day, leaning on his cane, his face stern. People greeted him with respect, bowing their heads. They knew his pain, but they also admired his strength. Agnes moved quietly beside him, her shawl drawn close, her eyes red from weeping. Yet wherever she went, women touched her arm and whispered, "We stand with you." And Natalie. Natalie did not hide. She walked the streets with her parents at her side, her head held high though her heart still bled. She felt the stares, heard the murmurs, but she refused to bow her head. Mama Florence called out as Natalie passed, "My daughter, be strong. The shame is theirs, not yours." Natalie forced a smile, though her throat ached. "Thank you, Mama." At the well, two old men spoke loudly enough for all to hear. "Harold Dishnard himself," said one. "And Mary has lost the name of friend forever," replied the other. "But Natalie, she still walks with dignity. That is her shield." The words spread, lifting Natalie's spirit. Though wounded, she realized she was not alone. The village had seen the truth, and their judgment was clear. Meanwhile, Harold could not step into the tavern without eyes burning into his back. "Adulterer," someone muttered as he passed. "Shame of Mbale," spat another. His once proud stride was gone. He walked with his shoulders bent, his eyes to the ground. Mary fared no better. At the market, women turned their backs when she approached. Children whispered behind her. Even the baker refused to meet her eyes. Their shame was no longer private. It clung to them in every street, every corner, every voice. But Natalie. That evening, she sat quietly at her parents' table, mending a tear in her wrapper. She heard the murmurs floating through the open window, the whispers of villagers who now carried her story. And for the first time since opening that fateful door, Natalie realized something. She was not alone in her pain. Her parents stood with her. Her uncle Lawrence had spoken wisdom to her. And now the entire community had taken up her cause. Though betrayed, she was not broken. Though wounded, she was not without allies. Natalie's lips trembled, but a faint smile touched them as she whispered to herself, "They thought they broke me. But instead, they only revealed my strength." The days that followed were heavy with whispers. Harold no longer walked with the boldness that once defined him. Where he used to stride proudly through Mbale's market, his voice loud and commanding, now he moved like a shadow, his head bowed, his shoulders stooped. People no longer greeted him, they turned away, muttering under their breath. Mary hid in her small cottage, rarely stepping outside. When she did, women whispered behind their shawls. Children stared with wide eyes, pointing as they murmured, "That's the one who betrayed Auntie Natalie." The disgrace was everywhere, like dust that clung no matter how hard one tried to brush it off. One evening, as the sky turned crimson and the scent of wood smoke filled the air, Harold walked to Walter's compound. His clothes were wrinkled, his face pale, his eyes hollow from sleepless nights. He carried nothing but a trembling heart and a desperate hope. He knocked softly on the wooden door. Once, twice. Inside, Natalie sat at the table with her mother, mending a torn wrapper. The knock made her hand still, her needle frozen in midair. She knew that knock. It was no longer bold, no longer filled with command. It was hesitant, broken. Agnes looked at her daughter, sorrow and anger mingling in her eyes. "Do you wish me to send him away?" she asked gently. Natalie breathed deeply, her chest tightening. "No, Mama. Let him speak. But let him not think his words can undo what is done." She rose slowly and went to the door. When she opened it, Harold stood there, his eyes bloodshot, his lips trembling. "Natalie," he whispered, his voice raw. "Please, hear me." Natalie said nothing. She stood still, her face unreadable, her parents watching from inside. Harold fell to his knees on the doorstep, tears streaming down his cheeks. "I know I have sinned against you. I have lost my honor, my name, my place in this village. But worse than all of that, I have lost you. Without you, I am nothing. Forgive me, Natalie. Give me another chance. I will change. I swear it on my life." Natalie's eyes filled with tears, but her voice was steady, sharp. "Another chance. Tell me, Harold, how many chances did you give me while you slipped into Mary's arms?" How many times did you think of your vows before breaking them? You do not want forgiveness because your heart has changed. You want forgiveness because your shame is heavy. That is not repentance. That is fear. Harold sobbed loudly, pressing his forehead to the ground. I will change, Natalie. I will never look at her again. Please, do not cast me aside. Walter rose from his chair, his cane striking the floor with thunder. His voice was fierce, booming with authority. A man who must beg to keep the vows he already swore is no husband at all. You broke the covenant with your own hands. You trampled honor under your feet. And now you come crawling, asking to be restored. Shame will follow you until your last breath. Agnes's tears streamed as she clutched her shawl. I once called you son. Now I see only a stranger. My daughter's tears are your doing. Do not think you can wipe them away with promises. Harold looked up at Natalie again, desperation burning in his eyes. Please. I beg you, Natalie. I will do anything. Cast me not aside. Let me serve you, let me prove myself. Natalie raised her hand, silencing him. Her voice was calm but final. You seek my mercy, Harold, but mercy is not a gift to those who trample trust. You ask me to forget, but my heart cannot forget what my eyes have seen. You shattered our marriage with your own hands. You are ruined, but not by me, by yourself. She drew a trembling breath, her eyes glistening with tears. I do not curse you. I do not wish you death. But I release you. You are no longer my husband. From this day, you walk alone. Her words hung heavy in the air, final and unbreakable. Harold swayed as if struck by a blow. His lips moved, but no words came. Slowly, painfully, he rose to his feet. For a long moment, he stood in the doorway, staring at Natalie framed by the warm light of the hearth, her parents seated behind her. She looked like a figure carved in stone, wounded, but unyielding. At last, Harold turned and walked into the night. The door stood open behind him, but no doorway remained into her heart. Natalie closed it firmly, her hands trembling. She leaned against the wooden frame, her tears flowing. It is done, she whispered. I have chosen. His betrayal will not bind me. My life begins again. Agnes rushed to hold her, pressing her daughter's head to her chest. Walter stood beside them, his face stern but proud. That night, Natalie wept until no tears remained. And in the silence that followed, she felt something new, not peace yet, but freedom. The following morning, Mbale stirred with quiet anticipation. Word had spread, Harold and Mary would leave the village. The streets filled with people, gathering in knots along the dusty lane. Some stood with folded arms, others whispered, but no one shouted. The silence was heavier than insults, heavier than curses. Inside Walter's compound, Harold stood with a worn satchel slung over his shoulder. His once proud posture was bent low, his face hollow. Mary lingered near the doorway, her eyes swollen from nights of crying, her hands twisting the strap of a small bag. They did not speak to each other. Whatever had tied them together had already unraveled beneath the weight of shame. Natalie stood in the center of the room, calm, her parents and Uncle Lawrence beside her. She did not raise her voice, she did not need to. Her stillness was its own authority. Today you leave, she said evenly. Not because I cast you out in anger, but because betrayal has no place under this roof. You chose your path when you broke trust. Now you will walk it. Harold's lips parted, but no words came. Mary swallowed hard, tears streaking her face. Even she knew pleading would change nothing. Walter stepped forward, his cane tapping the floor. You leave this house with only what you carried into it. Nothing more. Take your shame with you, but do not think to carry hers. My daughter has shed it. Agnes added softly, her voice laced with sorrow, you were once part of this family. Now you are not. Go, and do not return. Together, Harold and Mary stepped across the threshold. Outside, the villagers stood watching. Some turned their backs. Others whispered prayers that such deceit would never touch their own homes. Mothers clutched their children's hands, pointing at Harold and Mary as warnings. Harold did not lift his eyes once. Mary kept close to him, but there was no warmth between them. They walked together, Yet each was utterly alone. From the doorway, Natalie watched them vanish down the lane. The morning sun cast long shadows behind them, shadows that would follow them forever. She felt her chest ache, but also lighten. "They are gone," she whispered. "And with them, the weight of deceit. This home is ours again." That evening, the people of Mbale gathered in the village square. The fountain gurgled in the center, lanterns glowed softly, and the crowd buzzed with quiet anticipation. When Natalie stepped forward with her parents at her side, silence fell. She raised her hand, her voice steady and clear, carrying across the crowd like the toll of a bell. "You have all seen what has unfolded. You saw my husband and my dearest friend fall into shame. You saw them depart with no place left among us. But hear me well, betrayal is not only my burden. It is a warning for us all." The people leaned closer, listening intently. "A friend without loyalty," Natalie declared, "is no friend at all. A husband without honor is no husband. Trust is the treasure that binds hearts together, whether in marriage or in friendship. Once broken, it cannot be bound again with apologies or empty words." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. Mothers nodded firmly, holding their children tighter. Men folded their arms, their eyes solemn. "Let no one think secrecy can hide truth forever," she continued. Harold and Mary thought their betrayal safe behind closed doors. But truth rose, as it always does. And when truth rises, it strips away not only actions, but the soul. Lawrence stepped forward, his staff tapping the stone. His voice rang deep. "Hear her, people of Mbale. This is not just her story. It is a lesson for generations. A heart that deceives will find itself alone, but the one who holds fast to truth will stand unbroken." The crowd murmured again, some repeating his words as though already shaping them into proverbs. Natalie's voice softened, but carried strong. "I will not let bitterness consume me. I will not let betrayal define me. My life is not ended by their shame, it begins anew, built on truth, guarded by honor, shared with those who keep faith." The villagers bowed their heads. In that moment, Natalie's pain had transformed into wisdom, her suffering into strength that belonged not only to her, but to the whole community. In the weeks that followed, Harold and Mary drifted far from Mbale. They became shadows, their names spoken only in whispers of warning. But Natalie remained. She walked the streets with her head high, no longer the wounded wife, but a woman whose dignity had been forged in fire. Her words spread beyond Mbale, carried by travelers to neighboring towns. Around firesides and in marketplaces, people repeated the tale: a friend without loyalty is no friend. A husband without honor is no husband. Trust, once broken, can never be bound again. Years later, her story lived on, not as sorrow, but as legend. Children learned her words as proverbs. Mothers told their daughters, fathers told their sons. And Natalie, standing one evening at the fountain, looked at her people and felt peace. The wound had left a scar, but it was no longer pain. It was strength. She spoke softly, so all could hear. Betrayal may strike, but it cannot bind the one who chooses to rise above it. And with that, her story was sealed into memory, a lesson for generations to come. And so, Natalie's pain became her power, and her betrayal turned into a lesson for generations. But what about you? What would you do if the people you trusted most stabbed you in the back? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, I'd love to hear them. If this story touched you, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe so you never miss another tale filled with twists, heartbreak, and lessons that last a lifetime. Until next time, stay strong, and keep your trust guarded.